Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are doing well so far today. I am coming to you once again in floating head form. Don't get too used to it, but sometimes I think it's kind of fun to be a floating head. Real quick before I start talking about the football stuff here, the membership lists are fully updated as of last night. I went through and tabulated all the membership and Patreon stuff. So if you look down in the video description, and all videos going forward, the description, and if you look in the intro to the videos, the morning videos, you should see up-to-date information for all the membership and Patreon stuff. So if you are not there and you feel like you should be, if you feel like you should be represented on the members list and I just missed you, please let me know. But it should be all up to date now. Obviously, I don't keep it up to date every day, but I did go through yesterday and update it. So just wanted to make sure that everybody who's currently a channel member is accounted for. So if you think I missed you, please let me know. Okay. So today I want to talk a little bit about injuries because they're happening quite a bit right now to these Seahawks, and there's been some angst over it. There's been some, well, people aren't happy about it. And of course, you would never be happy about players on your team getting injured unless you really, really, really don't like the player, I guess. And even then, you probably wouldn't be happy they got hurt, if you know what I mean. So I want to talk about this a little bit because with that discontent is also coming this sentiment of, why is this happening? Why is this only happening to us? We should fire somebody. This is somebody's fault. What's going on here? Why does this keep happening? So I want to talk about NFL injuries kind of broadly here, looking around the NFL, talking about what other teams go through, because bottom line is, I really do feel like that this happens to pretty much every team at some point over the course of a season. I feel like that with very rare exceptions that are driven almost entirely by luck, like there's nothing you can really do to make it happen, it just happens, every team is going to go through injuries. The question is, how are your injuries going to go in terms of their severity and the players that it affects? That's the part that I think people are kind of losing focus on here. So you take a look at the Seahawks injuries right now. As of this moment, the things that they are working through, not the stuff that was resolved a few days ago or last week or the week before. As of right now, the injuries that they're dealing with, I guess you could say Drew Lock, their backup quarterback, although it doesn't seem like it's going to cost him any time. Technically still K9, Kenny McIntosh. Now we've got JSN. I guess you could say Cody Thompson, Derek Young, Oluwatimi, although it seems like that's just about to go away as well. We'll throw him on there for the moment. Cody Thompson to an extent. Matt Landers. Mike Morris, Cam Young. Jordan Brooks is actually just now getting on the field, but he's still fighting his way back, obviously. It's not done yet. Jamal Adams, going to be activated off the PUP pretty much any time now, today or tomorrow. So we're kind of getting clear of that, but that's still a thing. You got Witherspoon. So it's a pretty long list of players that are being represented on our injured reserve. And that doesn't even count some of the guys that people aren't really thinking about, like Brian Monet or Austin Folu, because either they've been injured for so long we've forgotten, or because they don't figure to play a significant role on the team anyway. It's a pretty substantial list of players. But if you go through the list of injuries for pretty much every other team in the NFL, it tends to be pretty long for a lot of these teams too. I'm just going to slowly scroll through here, and you can see that these teams, they got all different kinds of injuries. Some longer than others. Some lists are longer than others, and I understand that some of these guys, it's not really that bad. Some of these guys are going to come back in the next handful of days. Some of these guys are certainly going to be back for the regular season, and the injury is just kind of a paperwork thing more than a, oh, this is actually a huge problem thing. But that's the case for the Seahawks too, right? Even in the most pessimistic of outlooks, we're getting a good chunk of our players back either before the season starts or right after the season starts. So that particular situation is not only for these other teams. Pretty much every team has a long list of minor injuries that aren't really going to affect anything. The Seahawks are not excluded from that. And while you might look at these lists that I'm scrolling through right now and you're saying, I don't really know who that guy is, that guy doesn't matter, that guy doesn't matter, who's that guy, trust me, fans of other teams would do the exact same thing with some of the players the Seahawks have injured. That's just how the NFL works. So we might have a few more injuries than these other teams, but the reality is every team has a pretty good list of injuries, and there are some teams here that have a list of injured players just as long as ours. And here's another website, covers.com, that kind of shows the same thing. They have this list of NFL injuries. I have it collapsed right now, but you can see the number of players they have represented here. Now, this includes everything. This includes players who were injured last year that are still injured now, and players who got injured outside of football activities, and players who got injured in camp or preseason. So like the Cardinals, they got 5 guys listed. Atlanta's got 10. Ravens got, etc., etc. Go through the list here. You can find like 9, 7, 8. So some teams are certainly represented more than others. But you get down to the Seahawks, they've got 8. So quite a few teams also had 8. Quite a few teams had more. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to really get to here is that this is just a violent sport. This is a violent sport that is going to get players hurt sometimes. And there's no getting away from that. There's really nothing you can do to prevent that. You can put all your players in bubble wrap and not practice hard and then not play any starters in the preseason, but that leads to its own problems. That's what Denver basically did last year, right? That's what Denver did last year. And they had a ton of injuries when the season started, so it didn't work. It didn't work at all. If anything, it worked in direct contrast to the way they were hoping it would work. And then you also have to think about who's getting injured, right? Because people are going to say, oh, well, those other teams lost players or have injured players that aren't even going to make the team. And the Seahawks, I mean, you can say the exact same thing about the Seahawks, but if you take a look at the big picture on the Seahawks team right now, we still have our quarterback. That's the most important thing. You've got your best defensive players out there now, guys like Woolen, guys like Nwosu, guys like Wagner, guys like maybe now Maffei's getting there. Draymond Jones has missed 1 day of practice the entire training camp period. So it could be a lot worse. Like you've got a running back. Your starting running back missed a decent amount of time during camp. Now he's back. Are people really upset that Kenneth Walker missed some time in preseason and training camp? Like he's not a second-year player. He'll be okay. All right? I mean, last year was the year he needed to really ramp up on NFL stuff. This year, not as big of a deal. We've got our top 2 receivers, Metcalf and Lockett. They haven't missed time. Lockett missed like maybe 2 practices. And who cares? He's Tyler Lockett. He's been doing this forever. So we have a lot of players who are showing up on these injured lists that are not of huge consequence either. So what we are going through right now, bottom line is, every team's going through. And you also have to consider the severity of the injuries, I think, because as of right now, the Seahawks have, I would say, 3 players of consequence who are going to miss significant regular season time. And when I say significant, I would say the first 4 games. Derek Young, your number 4 receiver being one of the positions that you're supposedly really deep at. Brian Monet, who is not good at football anyway. And Mike Morris, a 5th-round rookie backup rotational defensive lineman. Everybody else is either not going to miss any games, like the really key guys, a guy like Witherspoon, guy like Walker, guy like JSN, is expected to either not miss any games or miss like 1 game. So The guys that are actually missing significant time are pretty much bit players. And also, as of right now, other than the players of really no consequence whatsoever, guys like Joshua Onujiogu, who probably wasn't going to make the team anyway, or Vi Jones, who maybe would have made the team, maybe would have made the practice squad, but wasn't really going to play even if he did make the team. Guys like that, I'm not seeing any season-ending injuries here. I'm seeing some injuries that might cost a player a game, maybe a few games, but I'm not seeing any injuries that are going to cost players several months or half the season or maybe the whole season. Like, would you rather have our injuries or would you rather be like what the Cowboys have? DeMarvin Overshown. We all saw this one live if we watched the preseason game. Overshown tore his ACL in the preseason game against the Seahawks last week. Like, that's, I think, a bigger deal, losing a guy like this, who they were counting on to do something for them this year, to a torn ACL. He's just gone for the season. What about the Broncos? They lose a key linebacker, Jonas Griffith, and a key receiver, Tim Patrick, to season-ending injuries. Would you rather have their problems, or would you rather have the problems that this team has right now? Or what about the Buccaneers with Russell Gage? I think he was going to be their number 3 slot receiver probably. Now he's on IR, not going to play at all this season. So, at the end of the day, you know you're going to have injuries as a football team. But are they going to come early? Are they going to come late? Are they going to be severe? Are they going to be minor? That's the only question. You're not going to get through the whole season with just clean bills of health. So, that's where I come down on this. And while we're here, one last thing to consider when talking about this angle. You take a look at the Seahawks schedule. Where is the gauntlet? Where is the gauntlet of this schedule? Late November, early December. With the exception of those bit part players like Vi Jones, Onujiogu, Austin Faolu, a couple other players that were never going to make this team. Do we have anybody on this team that is even going to potentially miss games in November and December as of right now? No. But this is the gauntlet. This is when we need all hands on deck. San Fran, Dallas, San Fran, Philly. We're going to need all hands on deck to win even one game in that stretch. I can admit that. That's when we need all hands. You don't need all hands week 1 at home against this terrible stripped down Los Angeles Rams team that is embracing the tank pretty blatantly. So if you're going to have injuries, this is the right time to have them. We're not playing Philadelphia or San Francisco week 1 here. If that was the case, yeah, I'd be pretty unhappy and pretty concerned about JSN potentially missing that first game. I would be concerned about the fact that Witherspoon didn't really get to ramp up this offseason because of the injury. I might be concerned about not having Mike Morris. But guys like that, guys like Mike Morris are not moving the needle in a singular game. If you lose a game and you come out of that game saying, well, we would have won if we had our 5th round rookie backup rotational defensive lineman, but he was hurt, then you didn't deserve to win. The game should not come down to something like that. You should have enough to win games against an opponent like this version of the Rams team. Not to say that every game early on is going to be easy. Of course, we got the Lions on the road. We got the Giants in primetime on the road. Bengals. But the gauntlet doesn't come until later in the season. So that's when we need all hands on deck. We can win a decent chunk of these early games without having all of our guys. So if these guys miss a game or two, that's fine. Now, if we were playing our toughest opponents early on, different. That would be very different. I would be really concerned that not having JSN could flip a game. But not having JSN should not flip a game against a team like this Rams squad. So don't worry about it. The important thing to keep in mind here is a vast majority of these players that have battled through injury over the last several months are on the verge of coming back and project to be back for week 1 or week 2. And in the NFL, a sport as violent as this, I think that's the best thing you can hope for. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. That's my perspective on things. Let me know what you guys think.